Hey guys, I don't know about you, but I can't stop shaking. You know why?
Why?
Because I'm restless. But actually, that's kind of right what our topic is today for Restless. Thank you. You've joined Diane and Paul in my really bad jokes. And Paul
I laughed internally.
Paul is so bored with my jokes that he picked up a book and started reading Oscar Wilde in the midst of this episode. That's not true. That's actually true. He just picked up a random Oscar Wilde book sitting on the table. The Importance of Being Earnest, which I've never read. But today's topic is about the interplay between having a healthy mind, body, and soul, because we are not just spiritual beings. We're not just angels, right? We've got bodies, we've got minds. And in order to be truly happy, truly fulfilled, we have to have all three kind of working in tandem. So how do you stay healthy? Like, do you eat healthy? Do you find yourself eating a lot of junk food? Because a lot of young adults do, especially if you're not married, you kind of just come home and microwave a pizza or whatever you do. But I would picture both of you as very healthy individuals.
I try. I had a delicious vegan kale Caesar salad for dinner.
Super healthy.
Very healthy.
Was it delicious?
It was very good. We got a new fast casual place in Stamford, which has a lot of stuff like that, which I'm excited about. It's very expensive, though.
Kale gets a bad rap. I think kale's delicious.
Yeah, with some dressing on it.
I mean, I'm not picking up a stalk of kale and just gnawing away, but yeah, it's delicious. I eat kale salad almost every day.
Yeah, it's good.
I have kale smoothies, kale salad.
Right down the street from my parish in Monroe, or Monroe. I don't know. Everyone keeps saying to pronounce my own town wrong. Monroe. Anyway, so right down the street, there is a farmer's market. Mm. So starting in June, I'll go over there every week and pick up some fresh kale picked by some farmer and.
Oh, that's got to be good.
Eat it. It's really good. Yeah, you put it on sandwiches and cook it with pasta and pasta sauce and stuff.
Yeah, that makes a difference. I don't know. I eat very healthy for the most part. I get into some bad habits. Like there are certain things that I don't eat just because I feel like I have no self-control when it comes to.
What's one of your non-self-control foods?
There are these chocolate almonds from Costco.
Costco,
yeah.
Oh, they are really.
Those
good.
are delicious, but I cannot during Lent. that was one thing that I gave up. I'm pretty disciplined otherwise, but I am not disciplined when it comes to those almonds. I mean, I think the serving size is like 10 or something, and I could eat like 30. It's just bad. So I try to avoid things where I can't control myself, but yeah, I don't know. I eat a lot of salads and just healthy, fruits, vegetables, yogurt.
Well, when you have that experience of overindulging in something you shouldn't have, how does that impact the rest of you, like your mind and your soul?
I normally feel really annoyed at myself the next day, or like if I do it at night the next day, of like, why did I do that? And then I'm just in a bad mood because I don't know, sugar kind of. It does have a bad impact on my body, just in terms of like headaches and other things.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Once you start to cut it out more and you introduce something back in, it's just, I don't know. I feel miserable about myself. So I try not to do that, because when I'm eating healthy and, kind of just sticking to what I need to have fuel and feel good, I, generally feel much better.
If I have something at night, I'll go for a walk at 10:30 at night and go for mile-and-a-half walk,
just to burn it off.
Yeah. It doesn't really do much. But I mean, it's probably better than nothing. But it's just mental. It's not a punishment. I enjoy it sometimes.
Yeah,
but
maybe it just helps your digestion if you're.
Yeah, that too. Also, if it's at night, it helps you sleep and stuff. If you have sugar at night, if you have dessert or something, it's
sure.
I think it's a balance. I'm not as disciplined as I used to be. I'm rebuilding my discipline right now over the course of several months. It's been going okay. But one of my roommates has a very strong sweet tooth. And so there's always temptation. So so that's been harder. I work for a Swiss company. So there's always Swiss chocolate everywhere.
Oh,
they
nice.
just send it over. Actually, we just got a box randomly from Switzerland a couple weeks ago. And it was a big box. And opened it up, and it was this disgusting, rotten chocolate that had melted and and they looked at the packing slip, and it got stuck in. They sent it from Switzerland, and it got stuck in customs for 2 years.
2 years?
And this was Sprungli. Sprungli is a very, very high-end chocolate brand, and it was all destroyed.
Oh,
that's disgusting.
I probably still would have eaten it.
No, you wouldn't have.
No.
No. It all went in the trash. So that was a shame.
Oh, I don't know. There's times I look at expiration dates, and they're kind of more generalities.
Depends
on the food.
It's okay, yeah.
Yeah, this past afternoon I was at our frisbee game for Cardinal Kung. I'm the frisbee coach, which is a lot of fun along with Lauren, who's our co-host, and we were both there. And I'd found some cheese that was like like blocks of cheese that you get for like whatever like you eat with like the toothpicks and stuff, fancy hors d'oeuvre things. So there was some that was left over in my parish, and it had been sitting in my freezer for I'm not really sure how long. So I decided to take it out, and it's like, the best place to get rid of it is in teenagers because they eat anything, right? So they start eating, and they're like, this tastes a little funky. So I took one. I was like, that's slimy. Cheese shouldn't be slimy. There's a slime all over it. I was like, I don't know how long that's been in there. It's been a very
that's
long
bad.
time.
Oh, that's nasty.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Well, what about you, Father Joseph? Are you a healthy eater? I know you have a sweet tooth.
I do have a sweet tooth. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Yeah. But I find definitely like sugar crashes are a real thing for me. Absolutely. Like a couple hours after. That's why I can't pray like after lunch. I'd fall asleep. So
kale salads, they don't make you fall asleep.
No, probably not. Probably not.
Yeah, that's why I actually eat lighter during the day and then heavier at night, just because I feel like I need, if I have, like a lot to eat in the middle of the day, then I'm just kind of tired and not wanting to continue to work.
I can't remember exactly what they're called, but there's these places in the world with these crazy high life expectancies. I think they're called blue zones or something like that. And there's several. There's some in Latin America. There's some in Asia. But the one that has the highest number of, was it super centurions? Like people that are in their like 110 plus or something, is in Sardinia, Italy.
Really?
And they eat like the opposite of, so the American diet, which is supposed to be like the pinnacle, is high protein, low fat, low carb. Something along those lines, high vegetable. They eat the opposite of that. They eat like a high carb, high fat, low protein diet.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not refined.
It's not refined.
They're probably eating bread from wheat that they grew themselves, right? And
well, probably not that.
But
but they're making their own bread. They're eating fresh bread.
You're making your own, yeah.
But they said because it's your body uses a lot of energy to digest protein. But not a lot of energy, which makes sense. Like not a lot of energy to do carbohydrates. So they eat a lot of, but it's all complex carbs, a lot of beans, a lot of like heavy, like hearty breads, and a lot of olive oil.
Well, did you know that our bodies now decompose much slower than they used to? And that's because of all the preservatives in our food. So it gets into our cells. And now when saints are exhumed to see if they're incorrupt or not, you're not sure if there was just too many Twinkies.
Wow.
But that's true, right? So I mean, what we eat does impact not only our bodies, but also our minds and our souls as well. I mean, leaving aside, of course, the question of gluttony, like how does this stuff impact your soul? I mean, you said that you get annoyed at yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, it's just like, I'm a very disciplined person. So it just comes down to like, I didn't need to do that. Like I could have just stopped at 10 almonds. Why did I have to go to 30? And I don't know, maybe it's like my psychology, but not that I can't like afford to, have that. It's just an annoyance. And then I find that I take that out on other people, because if you're annoyed at yourself, you're most likely it's going to come out. I try not to, but I feel better when I'm, disciplined about what I'm doing.
Do you find that you get like a mental fog?
Yeah.
Based on what you eat sometimes?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the sugar crash, I cut out sugar because that's kind of like a stressor, in your body. And there's other reasons to do it. But, so when I'd cut it out and then was introducing sugars back in, I would get headaches. I would have those crashes that you're talking about. So I think it's definitely real, the effects.
Yeah, I'm pretty hearty, I would say, in terms of what I eat. I mean, if I have wine, I get a little foggy sometimes, but that's a different story.
That's a different story, yeah.
No, but I don't know. I think I'm relatively. I don't have very many allergies. Like I can process most things. Obviously, if you have a lot of sugar, you're probably going to crash. But you can counteract that though. If you do a little bit of exercise, so your insulin doesn't kick in as much. Your body doesn't need as much insulin to process it. You can actually avoid that crash pretty easily. Or if you can. I had a friend who was like type 1 diabetic, so he always had to look at like like lengthening sugars. Like what ways can you like lengthen the sugar out so it doesn't digest all at once? So if you have something that's like high fat and high sugar, it helps because the fats like stretch out the sugars a bit.
Huh. Interesting.
It's not healthy, but you might not get a crash.
Yeah.
Like it's not good to eat cookies like all the time, which have a lot of fat and a lot of sugar.
Yeah, exactly.
Cookies are bad. Cookies are so bad. They're just so unhealthy, but they're so good.
They are. Yeah, they're good.
They're really good.
They're good.
But you look at the ingredients, look at the macros, and it's like one small cookie is like 175 calories, and it's all fat and sugar.
So why did God make these good things so unhealthy? Like, I mean, it seems like all the stuff you're supposed to eat, you kind of have to force yourself to eat sometimes, right? And the stuff that's good for you, or the stuff that's bad for you, is so delicious, and we crave it.
Can I offer an evolutionary explanation?
Please.
Well, it's the things that are really tasty are things that your body wants to store. And so we're naturally looking, like our evolutionaries, that we're looking for high caloric foods that we can then store. And so we eat more of those, like sugar and fat.
That's true. And in America, of course, our taste buds are so out of whack that like it used to be that like fruit was this incredible delight because it was so sweet, compared to what you usually ate, which was like, pork fat and whatever, lard.
Oh, pork fat is so good. Go on.
Yeah, it is. Right. But I mean, you never got sweets. It was a very rare treat, right? But now we get it so often that fruit, you're like, whatever, it's not a big deal. You want something more, you just have to, continue to ration it up.
Yeah, actually our fruit has gotten way sweeter too.
That's true.
Because we keep breeding more and more sweeter and sweeter fruit varietals over time, which is great.
I suppose so, but a lot of people have a lot of health issues because of all that. And
well, I don't think fruit is the major culprit. But
no, of course not.
Maybe it doesn't help.
But I mean, I know. I was reading a book about somebody whose parents were, I guess, kind of hippies in the 60s and 70s, and they were all like, let's try the latest fad, right? So one time they decided for an entire year we're going to eat nothing but fruit. And they had so many cavities.
Oh, well, yeah.
So many cavities.
Oh, it's also acidic, which breaks down your enamel.
Yeah, it's very acidic. And so finally, after like 6 months, they were like, yeah, we better switch that up and eat some other stuff.
That's kind of the problem with all these diets, Like you focus on, I'm going to eat only fats, I'm going to eat only protein, only meat, only whatever. And I don't know, I've never been sold on that. I just think it's what Paul said earlier, kind of just a balance and self-control. I mean.
So would you be able to say that health really is just keeping everything in balance?
Yeah. To me, it is, yeah.
To go back to your last question, I think that, I think it's always a healthy mind, healthy soul, healthy body, and they all kind of coexist. Generally, if you're not always, but if your soul is very healthy, you're probably a relatively healthy person. And you might struggle with certain things, which might mean you're overweight or you have other health issues, which is, kind of normal. But generally, you'd probably be a relatively healthy person if your mind, body, and soul are kind of somewhat in sync.
Yes, but then you look at the example of the saints, and how the saints had a lot of suffering, physical suffering, while they were being sanctified, being purified, right? So
I think,
I don't think you can link the two.
I think there's a difference between physical issues that are, I don't want to say in your control, but more in your control, and then illnesses and things like that.
Yeah.
Which aren't necessarily in your control.
But so let me ask you a challenging question then. So a lot of the saints did things that were physically unhealthy, right? St. Francis at the end of his life, he said he apologized to his body for treating it the way he did. Like, for example, there was a 1 year that for Lent he ate nothing, literally nothing for 40 days, except I think half a loaf of bread or something like that. I don't know if that's actually possible. It could be a little bit hagiographical.
I think David Blaine did it. I forget how many days he did.
Wow.
But he got buried underground in a coffin with water and oxygen for like many days.
I hope he offered that up to the Lord. Yeah.
I don't know. It was very bad. His kidneys are wrecked because of it.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're not supposed to do that. But a lot of the saints did do penances that were really extreme and stayed up all night and didn't sleep and didn't eat healthy. So is it okay in our spiritual life to focus so much on the soul that we neglect the body?
Yes. I
mean, I think you have to be careful. Before I would undertake an extreme penance like that, I mean, I think everyone should talk to his or her spiritual director, because I know that, for example, in St. Faustina's diary, her spiritual director essentially was, she was taking on all of these extra penances and mortifications that were extreme, and he said he was kind of just like, no, I do not do that. And I don't know, a lot of the things, sometimes people get caught up in wanting to do like extreme things for the Lord, which comes from a place of love and I think that's a good desire. But a lot of times I think it's the penances and the mortifications that God chooses for us, like that come in our daily lives.
Those
that
are less fun.
Yeah, but the people, it's almost like people want to choose, and it's this grasping, right? Like we all want to control what we're doing for the Lord, but we have to. A lot of times, the penances and mortifications that He gives us just comes through our day-to-day interactions, and the things that happen to us that we don't choose, and our interactions with other people. So it's like, I don't think that you have to like search far and wide and do these extreme things. That's not to say that you don't fast at all, because there's the other side of the spectrum where, people are, I think, a
little indulgent.
Very indulgent, I would
flesh.
say. Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't want to say don't do anything, but, like, I think we do have a responsibility to take care of our bodies, and I don't know.
May I be so bold as to suggest that maybe if people don't truly have faith in God's mercy, then they may take on an extreme, maybe unnecessary penance.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yes, I agree. On the flip side, I think the people that don't take on penances don't believe that deeply in Christ, or don't.
Like I said, like not eating for Lent.
That's extreme.
Is like God doesn't ask us to do things that are like detrimental to our bodies.
Really?
Kind of.
Because the lives of the saints.
There's a difference.
Otherwise,
There's a difference between like martyr. When you think about, there's a difference between being a martyr or suffering an illness or some other adversity versus choosing, like on a fully voluntary basis, to do something that would be unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right. Like we don't. Like if you're a pregnant mother or nursing or something, you're not asked. Your degree of fasting should be less.
Yes.
Because it would be bad for you and bad for the child potentially. Mm-hmm. Right. So we don't, like, God's not going to ask that mother to do something that's unhealthy for her and her child in that particular moment. Like it's unreasonable. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I think you have to like examine your mindset, right? Because if you're doing things of like, oh, I need to do this extreme penance because I need to, like Paul said, kind of just earn God's love. Like this will earn me more of God's love. I mean, that's a false premise to begin with. And I think some people think that, the same thing happens in the spiritual life in terms of all the kind of devotions that you take on. Sometimes it's like, I'm going to do a rosary, chaplet, daily mass, and then, a holy hour and all that stuff. But like, we really have to be attentive to our states in life. And
right. What's your vocation?
Yeah. What is your vocation? What are your responsibilities to your family, to your employees? Like, is this affecting, because if you're not eating for 40 days, I can imagine just, you're probably not being like terribly productive at work or,
life in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure,
so again, I think it just comes down to like, what is God asking, and not to get into that mentality of measuring everything.
Yeah.
But again, not to water down the fact that, a lot of people are very indulgent, and we could use a little bit more penance and fasting and mortification.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's a difference. I mean, there's a difference between not eating chocolate for Lent and not eating for Lent.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that. There's
That's
a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference between saying I'm going to eat 2 snacks and a meal every day during Lent, not just on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, versus not eating.
Yeah. And
there's a difference, and I think
yeah.
you can. I think that's where we'd probably, if you're listening, just if you have a spiritual director, like work through that with your spiritual director on what would be a proper mortification, which we should do. We should have mortification because that's what Christ went through. And so we should share in that, and we should willingly choose that. And then also, unfortunately, accept those that come to us involuntarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I just struggle personally because pretty much all the saints that we hold up in the church, I can't think of a saint who you'd say that saint lived a pretty balanced life. Maybe a few, maybe like, Louis and Zelie Martin, who were the parents of Saint Therese of Lisieux, who were married and, lived a pretty, nothing too extreme in their life. But a lot of the other saints that we hold up as examples, Saint Francis, Padre Pio, these great saints, they lived so extreme. Now, did they become saints because they were extreme in their penances, because they kind of disregarded their physical health and it was like Christ alone, no matter what? I don't know. I would love to see there be a saint who was like, yeah, that guy did absolutely nothing remarkable. I mean, I guess the very nature of a saint is that they have heroic virtue, and heroism is not just ordinary virtue; it's something above and beyond. But there's not too many saints that take vacations, right? I don't know any saint that some saints have recreation, I guess. John Paul II would go kayaking and things, skiing. So I mean, I guess we kind of take solace in that. But he lived a pretty hardcore life otherwise. Very penitential in many respects.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on what aspect of your life you're talking about, because we've been talking a lot about food, and I just feel like if you're not eating for 40 days, you're probably, again, like how well are you fulfilling your vocation and sort of what God is calling you to do. Whereas like taking a vacation is like slightly different in my opinion of,
that brings us to another part of health, which is mental health. How do you personally keep your mind healthy? For example, right before we started recording, we talked about how much all of us hate reading Shakespeare.
I didn't say I hate. I didn't mind.
I said I hate it reading.
I said Richard III, which is sitting here on, which is these students where we're recording have to read Richard III. This is like a miserable Shakespeare book. I've never read.
So all of them who are listening to this are going to be like, "Oh, well, Paul said it was miserable."
Yeah, this would be taking on.
No, they'll like it. They'll like. They'll like it though. I mean, they're smarter than me, so.
Yes, that's true.
By a lot.
Yeah, they are.
So boring.
Okay, so obviously you don't read Shakespeare for your mental health, but do you read regularly? Do you take vacation? Do you take enough rest? Do you.
Yeah, I read regularly. I mean, that's definitely a way that I kind of relax. I do read a lot of spiritual things just because I don't have a lot of time. And to me, reading spiritual things is fun. I also run, pretty much every day. So again, I mean, it's a form of exercise, exertion, but it's relaxing to me. I bake. I do some photography on the side.
Do you bake?
I do.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I bake a lot of stuff.
I don't think I've ever tasted any of your wares.
Yes. Yeah, I like to try new recipes. And I don't know. I guess it really depends on your state in life. But I mean, I'm single, so I hang out with my friends a lot and we try a lot of different things. Last weekend we went swing dancing in New York City. And
oh, that's fun.
Yes, very fun. So I don't know. I guess I'm more spontaneous in terms of what I like to do to relax. But I don't take too many vacations just because of work and stuff. But
how much vacation time do you get?
Technically 4 weeks.
But you don't take it all?
No.
Really?
No. It's hard to take 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But I take what I can.
I'll get pretty close this year. I think I'll have 18 days.
Okay.
Which is just about 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I'm going on the pilgrimage to for World Youth Day to Fatima.
Oh, are you really?
Fatima and Lisbon.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that's like many days.
So when you come back, we're recording an episode. You're going to tell us all about it.
Oh, great. Looking forward to it. Yeah. There's all the seminarians are going, so including one of our co-hosts here, so that'll be fun.
Our co-host Joe. So
yeah.
We'll take our intentions to these holy places. That's awesome.
Yeah, so anyway, so I suffer from I suffer from a higher degree of neurosis than probably a lot of people. Neurosis is the degree of negative emotion. I think it's just in my family to some extent. It's my nature. It's something I can't really control. So I think one thing that I've learned to control that a bit without needing like extensive therapy is I try to turn that negative emotion into something productive, at least, maybe and more self-giving. And so that really helps. Because then you're not focused. Because negative emotion, you end up being very self-reflective. You really end up thinking about yourself a lot and being probably too much.
And I can imagine that impacts your spiritual life very much.
Oh, very much so.
You feel maybe abandoned by God, or he's distant, or...
Yeah, I don't get that actually as much.
That's good.
But I try to I'll try to go to adoration more, or I'll try to do things for other people, or like I'll host, if I'm feeling that way, like host people for dinner spontaneously.
To kind of get out of your head?
Yeah, just do something outside of me for somebody else, and it's really helpful. So, yeah, I've gone through I don't think thank God I don't have chronic depression, but I have gone through bouts.
I have heard that. So psychologists say like if the best way to cure depression is to go and talk to someone else.
Yeah, for sure.
Just have human interaction, which is funny because that's when you have depression, that's the one thing you don't want.
Yeah, you got to get out.
Be by yourself, but
yeah, I mean, mental health is a massive issue in this country. I mean, I've shared before, but my brother dealt with like bipolar and chronic depression almost, it was kind of puberty onward, and ended up committing suicide at the end of his life. And so we were in my family, we've been very touched by that over time. And you just see the crisis in people. I mean, a lot of people, it's because they don't have God in their life. They don't have hope.
Right. So you do,
and not having hope is a sin. It's a theological virtue, right? So,
well, that's the thing. I mean, some depression is certainly biochemical.
Oh, for sure.
In fact, maybe most.
Yeah, my brother needed to be on medicine.
But there's also, I think, in our culture, I think there's a large amount of depression that's not biochemical, but more existential.
For sure.
Like the fact that you don't have hope, you don't see any meaning and purpose in your
nihilism.
life, you don't know that you're loved. Yeah, I mean, that's going to lead to depression.
Yep,
it is. And I remember particularly, I've done a few funerals of suicides, and of course, you never know where their spiritual state is. But I remember one very distinctly because I went over the house as soon as they found out that he had died, and so that right after the body had left, I came to go and pray to sit with the family, and I sat with the parents, and I said, "Do you want to pray together?" And they said, "No, we don't believe in that." And the son didn't believe in it either. I was coming on behest of the grandparents, who were very much men and women of faith. And I just remember thinking, like, well, you don't believe that God's a part of your life. I wonder if that had anything to do, because everything they kept saying was like, we saw no signs of depression. This young man had a great girlfriend, a great job. He was in a band. He was just living the dream, really. Mm. And he went home one night, put a note on his door and said, "Call the police, don't come in," and killed himself. I think in large part because he just simply took his nihilism and his atheism to its logical conclusion, which is this life is meaningless.
Right.
But of course, that's something you have to discern with a therapist as to whether or not it's biochemical or whether it is something with you're thinking, really.
Yeah, I mean, especially with people that have to go on SSRIs or SNRIs, kind of the prototypical depression medicine.
Prozac, yeah.
Yeah, that was Prozac, Zoloftos. Those drugs can be miracles, but they also can mask things that are deeper.
Yes.
And they don't actually resolve it. So there's two sides. And it could be both. So you could need to work on things that are deeper and also have chemical imbalances.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely,
that's a tough pill to swallow.
No pun intended.
They're small pills, so rejected. But yeah. So I think you'll have to work on both, but
yeah.
So healthy mind, body, and soul. It's tough.
Well, I don't know if you've ever read any Viktor Frankl.
No.
I was a big fan of his in college. He wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning, and he was actually in Auschwitz. He was a Jewish German psychologist, and in Auschwitz he got through it because he kept thinking about his wife, and he wanted to see his wife again. He said, people can endure anything as long as they have a meaning and a purpose behind it. And so he came up with a type of psychotherapy called logotherapy, which is like, and logos being the Greek word for word. It's kind of like if you find a meaning behind your suffering, you can endure a whole lot. You can get through a whole lot. And I think that's one thing, element that faith has often given me in my own life is, okay, so maybe I'm suffering from mental illness, maybe I'm struggling physically, but I've got Christ. I realize that it's not worthless. I can offer this up and unite it to Christ's cross.
Yeah, trusting in divine providence,
Yeah. Yeah. You see yourself as part of a much bigger story than just your life.
Yeah, it makes all the difference, that trust and abandonment and surrender, to whether it's his actual or permissive will.
Yeah.
It wasn't major, so I'm not trying to compare it to somebody's real suffering, but it was meaningful at the moment. I had a terrible bout with pneumonia during COVID, and it was really bad. And I did not have COVID. I got 4 PCR tests in the course of like a week, and all of them came back negative.
You were sick for a long time.
And I was sick for a while, yeah. And I had 103 fever, and my body temperature is usually about 96, 97, and I had 103 fever for 10 days. It was terrible, and no doctor would see me because
of COVID.
Because of COVID, so it's like you get sick, you go to the doctor. Not anymore. You get sick, you can't go to the doctor. Only healthy people can go to the doctor. Anyway, so I ended up at the hospital and needing like massive amount of fluids and stuff, and just a lot of just not doing anything. But I had just read A Story of a Soul. And I remember just when I would be really down and out and kind of just in my bed with like terrible chills and unpleasant, I remember just thinking about when St. Therese was sick and like her kind of stream of conscious that she writes in that book about what she would pray and what she would ask for and how she would be so self-giving when she couldn't even move at the end of her life. And it was like, wow. So that really helped me, actually.
Good.
So I'm like, I'm so glad I read that book right before I got sick.
God put that in your life.
Yeah,
right
it was really important.
it.
And I was okay. Like I didn't get super depressed. The hardest thing about that is I completely lost my appetite. Like nothing tasted good to me. I probably lost 10 pounds.
Wow.
I just stopped eating. It was terrible.
That
was so terrible. And like no one could see me either. Like it was all. I remember my parents came down and literally left me soup and then left.
Oh no!
Like,
and again, that goes back to the point that like we would rather have physical contact with other humans than physical health sometimes.
I think that was harder on my mom, to be honest, than me.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure watching her beloved son suffer, but
I was fine.
Yeah,
I ended up being okay. But
well, there's so much more I want to talk about, but we've run out of time. Yeah,
so fast.
So fast. I know, right? So thanks so much for joining us on this episode of Restless. My challenge for you is to go and live a healthy life. Do what you need to take care of your body, your soul, and your mind, because all three are interrelated, and we're only going to be deeply fulfilled and happy when all three are alive and well. In fact, St. Irenaeus said, "The glory of God is man fully alive." So you can find us on Veritas Catholic Network, 1350 AM, and also wherever you get your podcasts. Tune in next time.